New York City, once known as the city that never sleeps, lit by neon lights and pulsing with life around the clock. But in 2025, New York is no longer staying awake for parties or glamour. It's staying awake to guard against the nightmares lurking in the dark. The streets of Manhattan, once packed with tourists day and night, now lie eerily quiet. But this is not as the sign of peace, but in fear. Because when the lights fade, crime, vice, and despair rise to take their place. The homeless encampments piled up, taking over every street. People don't dare to go out after 8 p.m. Businesses and visitors quietly fled. As for the police, although still present, are noticeably retreating from many areas. How could a city that was once a symbol of freedom and opportunity become a place people fear every time it gets dark? Is there any other way to bring New York back into the light? In today's video, we'll lift the veil on a reality where New York is no longer a symphony of light and opportunity, but a series of nightmares scattered across streets that were once proud symbols of the American dream. Perhaps you've also quietly realized this. New York is no longer the promised land for the American dream. On the contrary, for many people, it's becoming a nightmare. From the Bronx to Lower Manhattan, from subway stations to the sidewalks of 8th Avenue, a wave of crime is rising as if the law had never existed. According to data from the NYPD, in just the first quarter of 2025, the number of serious offences has risen by 29%, with nearly 3,000 armed robberies and close to 10,000 cases linked to organised illegal activities. Even though the overall crime rate had once dropped to record lows, those figures still make New York one of the top crime hotspots in the country. And that's only what's been officially reported. But that wasn't the end of the darkness. Beneath the waves of crime that are increasingly coming to light, there is another crisis. Silent, persistent, and spreading like an unnamed pandemic, the homelessness crisis. There was no alarm siren. There is no official nightly news bulletin. But it's everywhere. Under bridges, beside subway station steps, along the back walls of shopping malls, and it could even stop right in front of your house. In New York State, the homelessness rate has increased by as much as 53.1%, more than 4 times the national average, and notably, 93% of that increase comes from New York City. Thousands of people are without shelter, and over 200,000 others are living temporarily with relatives or friends, or are completely unstable. The contrast between the past and the present becomes more bitter than ever. A city once coveted by the entire world, a place where generations believed that with effort, opportunity would come, is now a place its own residents seek to avoid as dusk falls. Those who once proudly said, "I'm from New York," now only know how to remain silent, bow their heads, or sigh when mentioning the neighborhood where they grew up. Is the American dream no longer disappearing in the blink of an eye, but rather crumbling night after night on every street corner? And if even New York, the heart of the nation, is trembling in the dark, where else is safe for the rest of America? For those who have booked or are booking flights to Broadway, what they likely expect are the dazzling neon lights, rows of seats packed with laughter, and the timeless melodies echoing from the stages of Phantom of the Opera or The Lion King. They came to the heart of New York, bringing with them dreams, expectations, and even cinematic memories of an avenue of glory. But the reality is a completely different, contrasting stage, making visitors want to book a return ticket the moment they step off the plane. During the day, you still see the bright billboards and hear the sounds of a vibrant city. But just a few steps below, just a few steps away, are rows of homeless encampments stacked along the Broadway corridors. Trash piled up, screams echoed from street corners, and the eyes of passers-by gradually avoided direct contact. Where once was America's grandest stage, now stands a city of hell, right in the heart of a dazzling cultural center. According to the NYC Department of Homeless Services, over 106,000 people are homeless in New York City every day, and thousands are without shelter, forced to survive right on Broadway, once a place for artistic dreams and opportunities. It's not just the increasingly visible presence of homeless encampments stretching along Broadway that's a concern. Another worry is quietly spreading: the feeling that the safety of residents and visitors is being eroded day by day. Although statistics from the New York City Police Department for the first quarter of 2025 show that citywide safety is improving, with many serious offences significantly decreasing, including dangerous assaults and robberies. However, right on Broadway, especially in high-traffic areas like Times Square, events have occurred that cannot be ignored. In March 2025, a particularly shocking incident occurred right in front of a McDonald's on 45th Street, less than 2 blocks from the major theatres. According to witnesses, a sudden scuffle broke out in broad daylight, causing many pedestrians to panic and flee, leading to chaos on the streets. Images from the scene, with screams, breaking glass, and law enforcement quickly arriving, spread rapidly on social media, leaving a lingering sense of unease in the hearts of many, including residents, tourists, and others. The incident not only disrupted activities in the area, but also created a significant crack in the perception of safety at this tourist centre. For many people, especially first-time visitors to New York, this is an unforgettable experience, but in a way no one wants. And tourists weren't the only ones fleeing. Small businesses around Times Square, bakeries, souvenir shops, and even independent theatres are gradually closing down. Long-time residents are also starting to move out, leaving behind abandoned neighbourhoods filled with instability. A place that once nurtured dreams is now becoming a place where hope is buried. Without drastic change, not just in terms of security, but also in trust and community, Broadway in the future is very likely to no longer be the Great White Way, but merely an empty space, where the theatres are lit but no one is sitting in the audience. And if even a place that has welcomed the whole world, like Broadway, can't survive, what does that say about the direction of this entire society? Did you notice? In recent days, the police presence around Roosevelt Avenue, the street that runs through Elmhurst to Jackson Heights, Queens, seems denser than ever. But they didn't come here for a regular patrol. They came to clear up the aftermath of years of instability when order was disrupted and the simple dreams of working-class residents gradually shattered over time. In June 2025, the city officially launched a large-scale campaign called Operation Roosevelt, a 60-day initiative led by the NYPD in collaboration with state police units, the fire department, sanitation department, and the local district attorney's office. The campaign was launched early in the morning with the goal of cleaning up an area that has suffered from years of decline in security and quality of life. The focus of the campaign is to restore a healthy and safe living environment, especially for children and families living in the area. Authorities are clearing illegal vending spots, handling accumulated waste, dismantling unauthorized stalls on sidewalks, and impounding unregistered vehicles that are occupying public space. Some call for service. Establishments disguised as high-end spas or massage parlors were also inspected when there were signs of concealing illegal activities behind the signs of fashion boutiques or care services. Acting Police Commissioner Tom Donlan, an NYPD Deputy Commissioner, personally surveyed the street the night before the operation was launched, an action that clearly demonstrates the city's prioritization of Roosevelt Avenue. Local residents, especially parents, express strong support. Many people share that they used to have to keep their children close to them every morning when crossing this road to school, because the surrounding atmosphere made them feel uneasy. A mother of two said, "We used to be familiar with the vibrancy of the neighborhood, but in recent years, things have changed too quickly. Now I just hope my child doesn't have to walk through that section every morning." Not only families, But many small business owners also shared that the business environment has deteriorated seriously, leading them to lose regular customers and be forced to close down. No one wants to walk down a street full of tents, screaming, and a feeling of unease every time the sun sets, confided a longtime grocery store owner. Roosevelt Avenue was once the community center for tens of thousands of immigrant workers, a vibrant representation of the hard-working, aspirational class. But their peaceful dream seemed to be pushed aside by complex reality, as this neighborhood became a focal point of years-long unrest. Nevertheless, Operation Roosevelt was not just an effort to address surface-level anomalies, it's also a commitment that the city hasn't completely forgotten neighborhoods like this. That children in Roosevelt also deserve to grow up in a safe place, not one that shows them images that make them turn away. Will a 60-day campaign be enough to heal wounds that have accumulated over many years? Or is this just the first step in a long journey that the community and the government must undertake together if they want to restore lost trust? Perhaps the biggest crisis in New York right now isn't in the numbers on the financial news, but in the increasingly thin paychecks compared to the ever-growing rent bills. And it's not just a financial problem, it's a silent spiritual battle that unfolds every day, in every small apartment, in every family struggling in the heart of this city. According to the latest data from Zillow, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan surpassed $3,900 per month in the second quarter of 2025, an increase of over 12% in just 1 year. As for those in general office jobs, the average salary hovers around $55,000 per year before taxes, which is less than $3,000 per month after expenses. That means rent alone consumes or exceeds the entire income of a single worker. For retirees, the group of residents who once laid the foundation for this society, the situation is even more difficult. The fixed social allowance, originally designed to maintain a stable life in old age, is now no longer sufficient to cover the cost of a small room near the city centre. Many people who have lived here since the 1970s, tax-paying, working residents who raised their children, are now forced to leave their own neighbourhood because they can't keep up with the ever-escalating real estate market. The story of a 68-year-old retired former postal worker is a prime example. He lived in the East Village neighborhood since 1981. But when the building was transferred, the new owner doubled the rent. "I used to think I would end my life in this apartment," he said. "But now I'm not sure where I'll be living next year. Maybe it's some corner out on the street." The problem isn't just about housing. When rent accounts for over 50% or even 70% of monthly income, people are forced to cut back on other essential expenses, from food and healthcare to supporting their children and grandchildren. Some three-generation families are forced to live together under one small roof, not out of closeness, but because they have no other choice. In a city once a symbol of opportunity, it has become a common phenomenon and a bitter paradox that a full-time worker cannot afford to rent an independent apartment. As the cost of living steadily increases while incomes stagnate, people find themselves squeezed between two pincers that no one can control. Is the dream of living in a big city still something to aspire to, or is it just a luxury for the few? And if even those who built this city no longer have enough space to stay, then who does this city represent anymore? In a city as brightly lit as New York, some children grow up in darkness. A darkness that is not just the night, but the insecurity that permeates every meal, every sleep, every step to school. They are not invisible, but it seems like society as a whole is gradually getting used to seeing through them, as if they were never present here. According to the New York City Department of Education's 2024 to 2025 school year report, over 119,000 students citywide are experiencing housing instability. These are children who have no fixed place to sleep, have to change shelters constantly, live with relatives, or even have no clear place to stay each night. That number is equivalent to the population of a medium-sized town in the US. But in New York, they quietly exist among the crowds, go to school, do their homework, and then quietly disappear into the shadows when the dismissal bell rings. The problem is, those children aren't lacking intelligence or willpower. They're lacking the foundation to develop. When sleep is fitful, when meals are irregular, when you don't dare invite classmates home because you don't have a home to go to, how can you study well, develop fully, or simply feel normal like other children? A social worker who has been with the shelter system for over a decade said, "There are children who change schools 4 to 5 times in a single school year. I don't dare go to school because I don't have a clean uniform." They didn't complain about anything, but their eyes were full of questions. Why? Sadly, most welfare programs focus on immediate solutions, such as providing temporary shelter, serving meals, or distributing supplies. Those things are necessary, but not enough to nurture a generation. Because children don't just need temporary shelter, they need a home. It's not just about needing food, it's about needing a sense of security, to be seen and to be loved. In New York in the 60s and 70s, adults often said, "The future is in the hands of the children." But today, it seems we're temporarily placing that future in a corner of a shelter, waiting for a miracle that hasn't arrived yet. If a wealthy city like New York can't ensure a safe childhood for the children within its borders, what hope do we have for our own future? And if we continue to turn away, can those children ever grow up and believe in any dreams again? If you've ever witnessed a similar situation or experienced a difficult childhood yourself, please share your story in the comments section below. Perhaps your experience will give hope to someone who is growing up in silence. If you walk through the street corners of the Bronx or the Flatbush neighborhood in the late afternoon, you might see long lines of people waiting for free meals, a sight reminiscent of the Great Depression era. But what's even more confusing is, we're not living in a time of budget scarcity. On paper, New York is spending more than ever to address social issues, particularly the homelessness crisis. According to New York City's 2024 financial report, the budget for the shelter system, social services, and housing assistance has exceeded $4 billion, the highest figure in the city's history. That's not even counting the hundreds of millions of dollars allocated to temporary housing assistance programs, mobile medical services, and non-profit organizations working in emergency relief. But the actual results made many people feel more uneasy than reassured. The number of homeless people continues to rise, and the number of evictions due to inability to pay rent is also increasing. And while shelters are always overcrowded, many people choose to live outdoors because they believe, at least there's a little privacy there, and you don't have to worry about being moved at any moment. A retired budget manager shared, "I used to work for the city government. I know budget isn't an issue, but when we spend more each year and the scenes on the road are still getting worse, it's clear the problem lies in how we're using the money. In the current system, there are too many layers of management, procedures, and overlapping regulations, causing resources to be dissipated right from the coordination stage. A support program may have to go through a series of approval processes and reports before reaching the intended recipient. By that time, many people had left the shelter, lost contact, or simply no longer believed in anything. The question isn't about the numbers, but why can we raise billions of dollars every year, yet we can't provide real homes for those who need them most? Perhaps the problem isn't a lack of funds, but a lack of sufficient vision to see the human beings behind each budget line. Perhaps the most heartbreaking thing isn't the cracks in the sidewalks or the tattered tents hastily erected next to what were once bustling train stations, but rather, it's the feeling that this city is gradually losing itself, bit by bit, corner by corner, person by person left behind. New York was once the embodiment of the American dream, where anyone, no matter where they come from, can start over from scratch. The immigrants opened a bakery at the end of the street. The artist plays the saxophone under the train platform. Little girls who grew up in small apartments in Queens can become doctors, professors, and writers. It's not just about prosperity, it's about the feeling of belonging, of finding your place in a vast city. But today, as they walk through once bustling neighborhoods like East Harlem, Roosevelt Avenue, or behind Penn Station, many people wonder, is this still the New York I used to know? They saw rows of tents stretching out, people huddled up sleeping on the sidewalks, the averted gazes of passers-by, and doors that were permanently closed, both literally and figuratively. Statistics show that New York remains one of the wealthiest cities in the world. The annual Social Security budget reaches billions of dollars. The subway system still runs through the night, and Broadway theaters are still lit up. But those numbers don't convey the feelings the people are carrying in their hearts. Weariness, helplessness, and a sense of loss. An elderly man who used to repair watches on Canal Street shared, "I used to believe this would be where I'd live out the rest of my life. But lately, I've started to feel like I'm just a guest, no longer belonging." That saying is simple, but it carries with it a whole generation of emotions, of those who once contributed to building this city with their sweat, labor, and even their faith. The story of New York is not just a story about the economy, housing, or public safety. It's a story about identity, memory, and collective belief. About a community that was once strong because it knew how to care for each other, because it believed that no one was left behind. But now, when people only know how to avoid looking at suffering or are struggling with short-term solutions, that shared dream is beginning to dissolve. Not in a major collapse, but in a prolonged silence. Is New York still a dream? And now, it's a mirror reflecting a society grappling with its most difficult questions. About justice. Regarding human dignity. About how we treat each other when the lights are off and the stage is empty. Perhaps what this city needs isn't grand campaigns or media slogans, but rather a reminder that New York was once built not just with concrete and money, but with open arms, sharing communities, and people who didn't turn their backs on each other. New York has never been a perfect city, but it used to be a place of simple dreams, to live, to work, to raise children in a hopeful community. Today, as darkness spreads through every street, temporary tents replace rooftops, faith in order fades, and empathy is obscured by weariness. Many wonder, where is this city headed? Crime can be statistically analysed, budget spending can be audited, but the feelings of unease, isolation, and lost trust are not captured in any chart. And that is the most lingering wound of a New York that is changing every day. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Can a city that was once a symbol of an entire nation find itself again? Will we, those who once called this place home, have the courage to reclaim not just the streets, but also the spirit of a community that doesn't abandon each other? New York is not just a place. It's a reminder of what we once believed, that even in darkness, light can still be found. If what you just saw resonated with you in any way, please leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to tell stories that not everyone is willing to listen to. But everyone needs to know. Each share is an opportunity to add one more person who understands, one more person who cares, and one more ray of hope for those whose lives are lived in silence. This video is not intended to condemn any organization, individual, or political group. All information presented is based on publicly available data, official reports, and field observations from multiple perspectives. The stories, images, and perspectives presented are educational in nature, reflecting social realities to stimulate constructive discussion without creating incitement, panic, or generalizations. We do not condone any illegal behavior whatsoever. We do not normalize suffering, and we do not turn human misery into entertainment. This is not a conclusion, but an invitation to reflect together, to dialogue together, and to hold on to the remaining humanity within each of us.